Well, yeah, we'll get started since, I know we missed last week. We will have a meeting next week as well, just so we stay on the same, and I'll have to change the calendar for every other week for these meetings. Just a reminder though, these meetings are supposed to be every other week so that on weeks I don't have the meetings, I can be available for any one-on-ones or for help with anyone. So during the typical meeting time, if it's a time that someone wants to meet one-on-one, go for it. I just don't want to hear, 'cause it's not like this is one person. I think someone else mentioned this recently, but they're like, well, I kind of forget when the meetings are, and it's, I get wanting to have it every single week, but when I get in meetings and it's just me and Nate, or it's just me, I can't do it every single week. Like my time, like I set aside time, I get the camera ready, I get everything. It's too easy to put this on your calendar, and we can now start to have it set to where our calendars notify us. So if, everyone should have a Gmail email for a couple of reasons. One, because you can link it easier with Lofty, which is our CRM. If you have a Yahoo email, I would delete that and I would create a Gmail email. I don't think anyone in our brokerage right now does. I think usually when you all onboard, I ask you, hey, you may want to create a Gmail. The other thing is Gmail has some security measures that you can set up so that it watches out for certain things. And in real estate right now, the number one people, and this is probably the biggest thing that we'll talk about today, number one people to be hacked are real estate agents and their emails. So people will send you phishing attempts and hack your emails. Luckily, Zillow, Realtor.com, Realtor.com. I do it all the time. Except for our own website, everywhere else doesn't really show your email, so clients can't really get your email just off of the regular internet, other than our own website. But the thing when they do those phishing attempts is if you get any email from anyone, never, ever, ever click the link until you verify the full email address is the same email address that you originally or that you have emailed with that person. What you're looking for is something. Your sound's muted, right? There you go. What you're looking for is something that says in the email, you're looking for something that says, Cameron at Vision Forward Realty .co or .net or .ai or whatever it might be, something that just seems off. Mary had one yesterday where it was a UWM, United Wholesale Mortgage, that we use all the time, and it was a different email, but it had a link in there. So what tends to happen is people don't just hack you and steal all your stuff. You're not going to know that you were hacked. So that's why Gmail is really important. And maybe once a month, set a reminder in your Google Calendar, which also your Google Calendar can send you all kinds of reminders. For those of you who use Calendly to send an invite link for people to schedule maybe one-on-one calls with you, clients or something like that, Google can do the same thing, and it just works seamlessly and it's free. Calendly can have one type of a link. So if you want to have, follow-up call link, initial call link, whatever call, and you want to specify it so that they can't book it within your meeting, they can't book it outside of a certain time window. You can do that with Google Calendars. It's all free. The other nice thing is you can set reminders. So same thing with these meetings. When I send out the invite, you can just copy and paste the link into your calendar and remind yourself that this is where I go for the meeting. You can download Google Meets as the free app onto your phone and open it that way, or you can call in. So that way, if you're busy, but you still want to listen into our meeting, you can do that. But we're all business owners. The hardest part from going from employed to being a business owner is being in charge of your own schedule and being in charge of assigning yourself things to do. So every time you see an opportunity, that is your opportunity to figure it out yourself versus asking someone to do it for you, if that makes sense. So everything is a habit. That's why we try to keep everything the same time. If I miss the meeting because I'm out at UWM and their internet just stopped working on my computer for some reason, and I cannot for the life of me figure out why it's not working. At least, like, because Damaris calls me or texts me, at least you were on the call and keeping that habit consistent, right? Same thing with, every Wednesday at 10 a.m., I'm going to start getting ready for the day. So I make sure that I'm ready, not necessarily so you could be here in person, but just so you can even make it onto the meeting in time, right? Everything has to be, hey, I'm a creature of habit. If I don't create a habit, I ain't doing it, because I'm used to being an employee where I have a set schedule and someone else had to create my habit for me. So for us, just try to be cautious about that. With the emails, what tends to happen is people will hack you and they're going to watch you. So they're waiting for a transaction to get into contract. And they're waiting for you all to talk about when, oh my gosh, I'm getting like 20 spam calls a day and I cannot get them to stop. What they're going to do is they're going to watch you, and they are going to wait until a transaction gets to closing. And they're going to see escrow sending escrow numbers, and they're going to see, okay, this is when escrow is probably going to send wire instructions to the borrower, or they're going to do it early, and they're going to make an email that's similar to that escrow officer's name, the escrow number, their email, but they're going to do, who did we just close this with? Is it Chicago? Yeah. So Chicago title, at Chicago till. So 2 L's instead of TITLE, it'll be TILLE. So it's easy to miss.com, right? Whenever you get a link, even if it's from me, so if I'm doing the loan, if Mary's doing the loan, anyone else in our company, or any other company, like, I like to send video recordings of me explaining the loan option, and I usually include the real estate agent. I talk about next steps, and I include the real estate agent so that that I'm communicating with the client. And when they say, I haven't heard from them, you'll say, well, bullshit. I see right there that they sent you an email. They go, oh yeah, which happens all the time. It's just, I think it's too easy for someone to say, oh, I never got something, versus saying, oh, I just didn't even check my email. I don't know why. It's a confrontation thing. People just are afraid of confrontation, even though to me, that's not really a confrontational, something you have to confront. But anyway, I would just warn your clients. Right now is huge. When you get any client and you start showing them houses, you want to win them over and become a representative versus a salesperson. You want to be a trusted advisor versus a salesperson. You tell them, hey, when we start, as I'm showing you more houses, I'd love to keep working with you. Just so you know, if you ever get an email from me and there's a link in there, just make sure that it's actually my email. If you ever get an email with a link from the loan officer, just make sure that it's always their email that they've sent to you before. The other thing is make sure that neither one of us are going to ask for you to send in money. At some point when we get an offer accepted, there will be 2 times you send in money. Well, other than an appraisal, there will be times you send in money at that point, but you usually are supposed to call to verify that the account number and routing number that you're sending money to, or that the link that was sent to you to pay, came from the appropriate company. That's true for the appraisal. That's true for home inspection, pest inspection, roof inspection, well inspection. Like, all of those companies, they should be verifying and double checking. They should not be clicking any links until they see that it's Cameron at purposehomelending.com. But really, it has to do with the money, because most of these scams are starting with the agent. So I just want everyone to be crystal clear that there's a good chance you could be hacked. Now, with Gmail, there should be a way for you to go into your kind of like admin settings. There's usually, if you go into Gmail on a computer, there is these 9 dots, right? 3 dots across, 3 dots down. You're going to click on that, and there should be an admin or a settings, and there should be something that says security. And you want to look at logins and just make sure that it's all areas that you have been that were logged in, if that makes any sense. You don't want to see that you logged in India or the Philippines or something like that. And you're like, well, never been there, so not me. Now I need to change my password. Which brings me to my second point, that everyone should be changing their password. I mean, I'm pretty sure people want me to say once a month, but I'd say once a quarter, so 4 times a year. I know that's annoying, but once again, you're professionals dealing with very sensitive information and a lot of money. Could you imagine someone giving their life savings away to a scammer because you didn't want to change your password? Just throwing that out there. Every other company right now, so title, escrow, the mortgage side of things, the lender that we work with, the appraisers we work with, everyone is required almost by law to change their password once a month. So credit agencies, all kinds of stuff. So that's just the first thing. The other thing I want to talk about is everything in real estate tends to come in waves, right, Nate? You get a wave of the worst agents, which is what we're dealing with right now. Everyone is dealing with it. Chase is dealing with it. Nate's dealing with it. Viviana, Rebecca, who else calls me? Alice, Vanessa. Just ride the wave, right? Your ability to communicate is going to make or break the deal, and you have to remind yourself how much you're making per deal. Call me and let's talk about it. Nate is also great at how he mitigates a lot of this stuff. Like I was just hearing him talk to Mary about, someone did a terrible job with their touch-up paint. I mean, so bad that probably they shouldn't have even touched up the paint, right? And so he just said, let's just not argue about it. I just really want you to go and look at it. So they went and looked at it and said, I'm so sorry, right? That's what they said. I don't know how this happened. There are ways that we can communicate, and sometimes it needs to be, my message to you is stop responding to them. Just ignore them at this stage of the game. Very rarely do I say that, but there's certain time frames that I will say that. I've got someone asking me on day 5, what's going on with the loan? What do you mean what's going on with the loan? It's day 5 on a 45-day escrow or whatever it is. What do you mean what's going on? Like, the loan's fine, but at the same time, day 5, I'm just not even going to answer you. Because remember, we are professionals, and most of us, our goal is not to close 1 or 2 deals a year. And so we cannot put every single day, every single minute, every single hour into every single deal. I get a call from an agent. I'm the buyer's agent on your one of your office's listings with Viviana Mason. I cannot get a hold of her. Really? That's funny. When did you call her? Today. Do not tell me that you tried calling her today. It was like 2:00 in the afternoon, and you're expecting her to call you back. It's 2:00. The day's not over, and it's today. And he said, well, normally she calls me back. Okay, but you're calling her broker to what, tattletale? Like, if this was 2 or 3 days later, I totally get it, because I've had that happen and it's obnoxious. It's the same day that you tried calling her. Like, this is a person with 4 kids and is extremely busy. I'm just going to tell you to wait. I'm not calling her to tell her to call you. No, which I did, but I also didn't realize that he had called that day. It was a long story, but this is the kind of stuff, right? It's the same with anyone else in our industry. If your client says, well, they didn't call me back. Well, when did you call them? Right? Let's try to get the whole story before we jump to conclusions with things, is the premise of what I'm trying to say. Whenever you're talking to people, just try to get a little bit of backstory and give them perspective. I think the number one thing people in society right now are having trouble with is putting themselves in someone else's shoes. It's, well, the loan officer didn't give me a call back. He didn't answer. Well, it's Saturday at 3:00. When did you call? An hour ago. Okay, what the F? Like, the fact that they're going to answer your call on a Saturday is pretty amazing. They weren't expecting your call, were they? No, I did just randomly call them. Okay, so maybe give them a little bit of time. It is Sunday. They may have their kids, or Saturday. Just give them a little time, maybe follow up with a text message. They might even be working with another client. I mean, this last Saturday, I have my kids and I took 4 different client calls. And had to call real estate agents to update them. Let's just all be a little bit patient, but try to give our clients perspective, and always put try to get them to see the other person's perspective. Same thing when we're negotiating. It's all about perspective. That's why if your client says, well, I'm just going to go to the open house, I'll say, no, you're not. I would prefer either I go with you or to the open house, or you just wait until I can show you privately. Why? Because if you say one thing, what happens is that listing agent, or even if it's not the listing agent at that open house, they're going to use that information against you because they're going to put themselves in your shoes, which just means, for instance, I had a client who went to an open house, told them, oh my gosh, this house would be perfect. That room we could easily convert into a mother-in-law suite, and we haven't found a house quite like that. And it's right down the street from our ex that we have to share custody with the kid. And so we can just quickly drive down the road when she's too drunk to come and pick him up. Literally what they said. And the agent was sold on the fact that this was the only house for them. And she was blown away when, we were countering and stuff. And I said, well, unfortunately, they're just not going to move forward with the house with this offer. We're going to go find someone somewhere else. She said, no, this is the only house that they can get. I said, what? And she called me almost every day for 2 weeks. So when are they submitting an offer? I said, we're already in contract on another house. And she just could not believe it. She put herself in their perspective and said, no, if I was in their shoes, this would be the only house I could get. So just keep in mind when you are negotiating with people that from start to finish, everything can be affected, because we are in California, and I do think we're going to see a rise in buyer lawsuits. So buyers suing real estate agents when they find out that the agent said something that hurt their ability to negotiate. Not like you have to be super cautious and worried, but then again, you should be super cautious and not worried, but you want to be protective of your clients, which usually we don't have a problem about that in our brokerage. So I think that's great for everyone. Anyone watching the recording, even online, hopefully this is kind of helpful for everyone. Even if you're in other states, I do a lot of loans in other states, and some of the things I hear and see, nothing is common. So this is probably the last real big legal note I'll have is if you find yourself saying, oh, it's common to do this, you need to take a step back and just don't let it come out of your mouth. You should never, ever, 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 ever be saying, well, it's common to a client. Everything is negotiable. You could say, from the perspective of a seller, they may be used to seeing this, or in our area, a lot of listing agents are used to seeing this, and so it might be a shock, but if you want me to negotiate it, I can negotiate it. But what happens is, and I had this in Michigan, this stupid bleeping agent says, it's not common to ask for a credit to help cover closing costs. Dude, he said, oh, that only happened in 2020. Like, well, no. It's when rates were 3% or below 3%. So no, that wasn't common. But also, you can't tell someone that something is not common. That was the whole premise of our real estate agent lawsuit, because they said, well, no, it's common that you pay the buyer's agent commission, and it's common that you pay 3%. Now you've made something non-negotiable, which is an antitrust violation. So I just want to remind everyone that you got to be aware that things are, you just cannot say that things aren't common. You can put yourself in the perspective like, hey, listen, people are very used to only giving a credit for half of the repair for a roof, maybe not giving you the full credit, but we can definitely negotiate and ask for the full credit to replace the entire roof. But I just want to give you some perspective that they may not be up for that, just so that you're not shocked when they say no and they only counter with half. Once again, you can just have your walk away point. I just want to prepare you. But the worst thing you can say is, it's not common, so we just can't ask for that. A full credit to replace the roof. Yep, you're going to get in a lot of trouble for that. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. But yeah. So now that all the legal stuff's done, the last thing I'd say as far as mindset is, I'm going to talk about this every single time. I'm going to try to remember your vision and remember your goals, because it's going to help you make decisions as to why you got into real estate, why you're putting yourself through what you're putting yourself through. and whatever it might be. If you find yourself constantly recording silly videos and you're not sure why and you get frustrated with yourself, you have to remind yourself, oh yeah, because I'm trying to tap into my sphere of influence because I want a business based on referrals, which is going to get me 2.5% to 3%, and I can close more deals because when I get referrals, they're less stressful clients and they look at me as an advisor a lot more versus just a salesperson, because internet leads typically look at me as a salesperson versus referrals. So I know I'm going to have a more solid business and make a lot more money, right? Remind yourself the vision, remind yourself why you're doing this. And also, everyone really needs to remind themselves that they're an independent contractor. Every year, our association fights to maintain the independent contractor status. The second we lose that, what's going to happen is the labor department, especially in California, is going to come and they're going to do the ABC test with every single brokerage. Do they pay for any tools or resources for us that we don't pay for because that makes you an employee? Do they require that we come and do anything as a part of being in the brokerage? If the answer is yes, you're an employee. I forgot what the third one is. Do you have to put in a certain amount of time or like something else? But there's a lot of companies out there that say, oh, we don't have any monthly fees to the agents and we provide all this stuff. Well, when we lose our independent contractor status, they're going to lose that. They're going to get hit with a huge audit, and what's going to happen is they're going to owe unemployment insurance payments dated back to when they first hired people on, because they're going to look at them as employees. So with that being said, I did get a call from a company called Whisper, who is now partnering with Lofty and a lot of other companies. This is some AI tool that actually I thought was pretty cool. But I don't know if everyone would use it, and I'm not willing to pay the cost. It would be for the entire brokerage. It would be $50 a person. Up until about 9 agents, it's about $100 per person if we just did up to 9 for anyone who's interested. This is a tool that if you had a client calling, you can just press a button and it starts recording your call and taking notes. Not really recording your call, but taking notes. And then you can call it after and you can say, hey, I just finished showing a house to Sarah Johnson. Can you take some notes and add it to their profile in Lofty? Yes, I can. What do you want me to put in there? Well, they told me that they want a fixer, but now they want something more updated. Can you change the search criteria so that it's sending them more updated homes? And they also want a 4-bedroom house instead of a 3-bedroom house. Can you change that as well? And it will literally update this stuff in Lofty for you. It does a ton of other stuff. I can get more of a demo for the whole brokerage if anyone is interested. But we do have to have a minimum of 5 agents that are interested in doing it. But I am going to have everyone pay for it separately. So it would be just a separate thing. Let me know. Like I said, I'll put out a few more messages about this and a longer explanation of all the things it can do. It is pretty useful. So we'll see if everyone wants to do it. I'm sure that there might be another technology platform similar, just where it doesn't connect with Lofty. But that's out there if someone wanted, if there's only a couple of you. Last couple things are, we're getting into the holiday session. And so we're going to have, we're getting into the holiday session, so we're going to have a lot more events. We just finished the poll on our brokerage happy hour. Just a time for us to all get together. It doesn't show me the poll results. I forgot how you do that. But it looked like it'll be September the 12th. We'll just do 4 to 7. You can invite your clients. You can bring your whole family. We will make it a potluck. We might get some companies to help cater as well. And then the brokerage will just pay for all the drinks and stuff. We'll have tons of games out here. And that's when we'll start advertising our holiday events. So our first one will be that we'll advertise during the office happy hour and have flyers out for it, is our trunk or treat. And then the next one will be our Pictures with Santa event. And then Viviana is helping us find a spot for our Christmas party. But then we'll also have Pictures with Santa probably after. So Just keep in mind our Christmas party is usually the first week of December. Maybe it'll dip into the second week, but usually the first week of December. But yeah, we have the brokerage happy hour will probably be, I got to relook at the poll, but I think I saw September 12th had the most votes. So September 12th, 4 to 7. And then the trunk or treat will probably be in the second week of October. And so once again, great way to call all of your past clients, whether they're in the area or not, invite them, lock in a relationship. October is usually great for us. I don't know if it has a great correlation with coming back to school plus us doing these events, but I think it's a great time to touch base with all of your past clients, anyone who was searching and isn't, stop searching, whatever it might be. So, yeah, if anyone needs help with anything, I'm available. Please hop on Discord if you need help. A lot more of you are using Discord, which I love it. And yeah, anyone have any questions who are on the call today?